Hi, tonight from Groovy Entertainment. Today we got another book on record to play for you. Today book is Cinderella from 1974. So let's get started.
Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, there was a beautiful girl named Cinderella, who lived with her stepmother and her two stepsisters, Arabella and Terabella. They made her do all the housework. In the kingdom where Cinderella lived, there lived a real prince with his parents, the king and the queen. And the time had come for him to choose a wife. So the king and queen planned for weeks and weeks to give a huge party, a ball, and all the young ladies from the noblest families in the kingdom were invited. Now, Arabella and Terabella, Cinderella's stepsisters, got invitations to the ball. But Cinderella did not get an invitation. You can't go to the ball. You didn't get invited, screamed Arabella. The day of the grand ball arrived. Finally, Arabella and Terabella squeezed into their hired coach, and away they went to the ball, leaving Cinderella to clean up the mess they made getting dressed. Cinderella was very sad. Suddenly, Cinderella heard a strange sound. The air near her shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. "Who are you?" cried Cinderella. "I am your fairy godmother. Would you like to go to the ball? If you really want to go to the ball, there's work to be done." "I'll do anything you say," said Cinderella, and she smiled. "Pumpkin, I need a pumpkin." Cinderella ran into the garden and brought a pumpkin. A touch of the wand, and the pumpkin turned into a beautiful coach. "Mice, I need some mice." Cinderella brought her 7 pet mice, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 beautiful horses to pull the coach. There was still one fat mouse left in the cage. That was easy. The fat mouse became a roly-poly coachman with a large mustache. "Cinderella, there is a family of lizards in the watering can near the potted plants by the back door. They can be footmen." Presto! 6 elegant footmen bowed low and took their places on the carriage. Cinderella's ragged dress became a radiant, long evening gown of gold and silver, frosted here and there with exquisite little gems. Even Cinderella's hair was done in the latest style. "I hope I'm not being too much trouble," said Cinderella. "But I don't have any shoes." That was no trouble, and a pair of tiny glass slippers appeared on Cinderella's feet. "Cinderella, my dear, the magic will last only until midnight. At midnight, everything will change back. Then your coach will turn to a pumpkin, the horses and coachmen to mice, the footmen to lizards, and your fine clothes to rags." The palace was lit with thousands of lights. There were hundreds and hundreds of guests. Suddenly, there was a buzz of conversation. about the magnificent carriage which had arrived, and the beautiful young girl who was getting out of it. The prince dashed down the palace steps to greet her himself. Then the prince slowly took Cinderella's hand and led her up the steps of the palace and into the grand ballroom. And they started to dance. Cinderella was so beautiful that evening that Horabella and Terabella, her two stepsisters, didn't even recognize her. "Please tell me your name," asked the young prince again and again. But Cinderella was afraid to say her name, so she only smiled, and they danced and they danced. Suddenly, it was midnight. As the clock began to strike 12, Cinderella remembered. She turned and ran out of the ballroom. Down the palace steps she ran, and she was in such a hurry that even when one of her glass slippers fell off, she didn't stop to pick it up. At the last stroke of midnight, everything changed back, and Cinderella, now in her ragged dress still running, disappeared into the night. The prince ran up to the palace gate. There was no one there except the gatekeeper. "Have you seen a beautiful princess go by?" he asked. "No, your highness," replied the gatekeeper. "Only a poor girl dressed in rags. She was carrying a pumpkin, and the strangest thing was that some mice and lizards followed her." The prince went sadly back up the palace steps. Then he saw the one glass slipper that Cinderella had lost lying on the steps. He picked it up and looked at it. "I will find her," he thought to himself. "I will find her if it takes forever." The prince, determined to solve the mystery and find the girl of his dreams, had his herald issue a proclamation. "The prince will marry the girl whose foot will fit the glass slipper." From house to house went the king's messengers, trying the glass slipper on every young girl in the kingdom. It was the morning of the third day when the messengers arrived at Cinderella's home. Of course, neither of the stepsisters could get so much as a big toe in the tiny slipper, let alone a foot. "Are there any other young ladies in the house?" asked the king's messenger. "No," said Horabella and Terabella. But then the king's messenger noticed Cinderella standing behind the stove. "I have been given orders," said the king's messenger, "to try the slipper on every maiden in the kingdom. Will you please come forward, miss?" "She doesn't count," said Terabella. "She's no princess," cried Horabella. But by that time, Cinderella was wearing the tiny glass slipper. It fit perfectly. Then suddenly, Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared, and with a touch of her wand, Cinderella was dressed in a gown more dazzling than the one she had worn to the ball. Cinderella was driven to the castle in the royal carriage. The prince was waiting to greet her. The king ordered that a grand celebration be held in honor of his son's marriage to Cinderella. From that day on, the castle was filled with music and laughter, and the prince and Cinderella lived happily ever after.
So, that was Cinderella for 1974. So if you like, subscribe, share, and comment, and have a groovy day. And our next book will be The Ugly Duckling.